Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive cross-border logistics crisis and unpacking how cutting-edge AI is transforming it into a highly profitable financial play. We're looking closely at the Ontario-Michigan Waste Corridor. It's a geopolitical flashpoint involving everything from Donald Trump's Washington trade tariffs and the USMCA to the sheer logistics of municipal solid waste disposal. But underneath all the headline news, a fascinating shift is happening. We're going to see exactly how a standard consumer smartphone is being operationalized to secure Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the cross-border waste corridor. Then, tariffs and the capacity cliff. Building the sentient bridge, the AI compliance gate. And finally, shorting the landfill. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The cross-border waste corridor. To really grasp the tech, we've got to look at the physical reality on the ground first. 3.46 million tons. That is the staggering volume of municipal solid waste, or MSW, that Ontario exports across the U.S. border into Michigan every single year. Just to put that into perspective for you, Canadian trash makes up over 14% of all the waste buried in Michigan landfills. Every single weekday morning, you've got massive tractor trailers idling at the Ambassador Bridge, just packed with material heading south. So why is this happening? Well, it's classic arbitrage. Right now, Michigan's tipping fee for out-of-state waste is just 36 cents a ton. 36 cents. Now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is proposing to hike that up by 14 times to $5 a ton. But honestly, even at $5, it is still a massive bargain. Compare that to burying the exact same trash in Toronto, where rates are pushing a staggering $190 a ton. The financial incentive to export is just absolutely enormous. Now, you're probably wondering, why doesn't Michigan just slap a huge tax specifically on Canadian trash to stop it? Well, they can't. Thanks to U.S. constitutional law, specifically the Commerce Clause, Michigan literally cannot refuse Ontario waste just based on where it came from. And they can't charge a special out-of-state fee either. The rate has to be uniform across the board. So that state fee, it's just a tiny line item for shipping, definitely not a deterrent. Which brings us to part 2, tariffs and the capacity cliff. Since local state fees aren't closing this corridor, we need to zoom out and look at the macro forces. And the timeline here is super tight. In July 2026, the U.S. Trade Representative's final ruling on the CUSMA exemption hits. A month later, August 2026, Section 338 tariffs kick in, slapping 50% duties on finished Canadian wood. And all of this pressure from Washington is colliding head-on with Premier Doug Ford's looming 2034 deadline, which is when Ontario literally runs out of domestic landfill space entirely. That 2034 date is what's known as the capacity cliff, and this is the absolute crux of the issue. Ontario's rising landfill scarcity is the true driver of this corridor. Those trucks aren't heading south just because Michigan is cheap. They're heading south because, in less than a decade, Ontario physically will have nowhere else to put its garbage. This quote perfectly captures the tension. Both sides of the border are bracing for this massive structural shift. Ontario is frantically scrambling for domestic capacity, while Michigan is looking for any legal way to reduce imports. This creates a huge, ticking economic void. And you know what happens with economic voids? They attract serious innovation. All right, part 3, building the sentient bridge. Enter a technology company called 95 Wood. They are stepping right into that void. But they aren't just a logistics company moving garbage. They are building what they call a sentient bridge. It's a digital refinery that completely reimagines what waste actually is. The system intercepts chaotic, mixed construction waste and rigorously verifies it, ensuring it meets the ultra-strict, high-purity requirements of the global biocarbon market. Rather than just dumping a load in a landfill, this digital refinery processes it through 6 distinct layers. It starts with intake, navigates all the complex regulatory filings, realizes the financial value, and finishes with scientific validation. In short, it takes a mixed load of trash and transforms it into a highly valuable, registered climate removal certificate. Physically, this whole process starts in the real world with these massive trucks. They haul nearly 20 tons of material at a time. They call them the 144-yard walking floor motherships. But here is the wild part. The real magic, the exact mechanism that shields this entire operation from those 50% USMCA tariffs, happens before that truck even rolls out of the yard. Let's dive into part 4, the AI compliance gate. Right at the source, the heavy lifting is done by, get this, a smartphone running an incredibly powerful Edge AI stack. We are talking about a Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16. It uses the LightArt AI stack and a Gemma 4 classifier. In under half a second, this device visually classifies every single load right at the bin. And the Titan M2 hardware acts like a digital wax seal. It locks that decision into a cryptographic record, creating an instant audit-grade paper trail. The application workflow here is completely seamless. On the front end, the UI translates a basic request for quote, and on the back end, it outputs verified, audit-proof PDF documentation, specifically a USMCA Shield 9-point certificate of origin. This exact workflow output is what allows clean wood to cross the border completely exempt from those 50% Washington tariffs, safely categorized under HS code 3825.0. I really want you to pause and think about that for a second. They are taking a standard consumer smartphone, something you could literally buy at the mall, and they're operationalizing it to perfectly navigate complex constitutional law and international trade policy. It's just wild. By proving the load is clean wood right at the point of origin, they guarantee it never gets classified as mixed municipal waste. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Shorting the Landfill. In market terms, what 905 Wood is doing is taking a short position on the residual value of trash. They're making a massive bet that the financial value of not sending a load to the landfill is going to absolutely skyrocket as we get closer and closer to that 2034 capacity cliff. They are perfectly positioned to capture the spread as that load's value curve arcs sharply upward. Here is the first immediate payoff for the generator. Ontario charges a mandatory CIRCL levy on waste disposal. If your load is deemed mixed waste, you're paying $60 a ton. But if it's verified as clean wood, it's only $5. Because the AI compliance gate guarantees the load is categorized as clean wood, it instantly saves the generator over $1,000 per mothership truck in provincial levies alone. But look at the bigger picture here. The real trade isn't just about saving on disposal fees. It's all about the carbon dividend. When that verified clean wood is converted into high-purity biocarbon, it generates carbon removal certificates, or SORCs. For a fleet running 200 loads a week, avoiding a levy is great, sure, but the carbon dividend, that represents tens of millions of dollars in retained value. That number right there, $7,660, that is the spot-eye premium payout for just a single mothership load in the biocarbon market. By intercepting chaotic waste and verifying it with a smartphone, they are completely reshaping the economics of the entire circular bioeconomy for Ontario. They are literally turning a cost center into a massive profit center. The absolute key takeaway from today's explainer is this. Regardless of what politicians in Washington, Michigan, or Ontario decide to do with tariffs, tipping fees, or trade agreements, the market forces driving this digital refinery are only getting stronger. The higher the costs go to bury trash, the more profitable the sentient bridge becomes. As we race toward the 2034 capacity cliff, ask yourself, will your waste be a growing liability or your most profitable asset class? It really makes you wonder how many other physical world problems, from complex international trade disputes to raw material shortages, can be solved and monetized just by slipping a sentient AI bridge right into the middle of the supply chain. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive into the Ontario-Michigan Waste Corridor. Until next time, keep questioning how tech is rewriting the rules of the real world.